Well, thanks, Jordan. Thanks, Nate, and thanks, Apprenticeship in Illinois, for supporting our local efforts and for letting me present today. I'm going to present on engaging integrative business service team partners. And it's based on some of the work that we've done over the past year. I'm hoping that if you're new to this work or have found some challenges, that this will help you in solving some of those local issues. I'm Justin Arnold. I'm the director of a workforce board in East Central Illinois. It's 5 counties. One of them is a metro county with Champaign, and that's where the University of Illinois is. And there's a strong healthcare and manufacturing, government and higher ed base. And then our 4 other counties are more rural, smaller populations, smaller hospitals, smaller supply chain manufacturers. And then, like most places, we have a strong logistics industry going throughout our region. So just want to give you a sense of who we are, and maybe it is similar to your local workforce area. Over the past year, we did convene and launch a business team. We called it the East Central Illinois Business Team, and I just want to take a minute and recognize the folks who participated in that before we get into the presentation. You can see we have the Champaign County Chamber of Commerce, Champaign County Economic Development Corporation, Champaign Public Library, the Workforce Board, a DCEO, specifically someone from the Red Team, IDES, IDHS Doors, 2 folks from vocational rehab, Parkland College, RPC, which is the Title I program administrator in our area, the SBDC, the local SBDC, Tuscola Chamber and Economic Development Corporation, and then AGC Works, which is a platform provider for referrals and data collections for local workforce areas. So this is what our team looks like. And so as we go through this presentation, you'll keep that in mind, that these were the folks who were at our table. Maybe you'll have different people. I know some people are more high school focused, and some folks might have other people at the table that, excuse me, I left out, but this is who we had locally. We did start about a year ago, like I said, in August 2023. It was with the Apprenticeship Illinois Boot Camp that Nate and some others, Jennifer Foyle, helped put together with John Barr. That was a statewide opportunity for folks to come together, break up into LWIAs, and talk about how they could start a business team and expand apprenticeships. We came back from that, and a year later, we have launched a business team. And that happened basically through monthly meetings and having relationships where we thought through what a local business team would look like. So, you know, the players, you know that we've had some success, and this presentation is going to kind of break some of that down in hopefully a helpful way. The learning objectives for today's presentation include using a shared framework, facilitating planned change, and launching a local brand. We'll take some time, 15 minutes or so, 10, 15 minutes, which each of those topics. And at the end, I'll summarize those 3 learning objectives for you again. Learning objective number 1, using a shared framework. What we found was that we needed to find a shared framework to use because all those folks at our table had a different perspective. Where do those perspectives come from? Some of it came from geography. So some folks are in a more rural area, and some places or some entities were in a more metro area. And everyone who came to the table thought about workforce development and business engagement from their own place, from their own environment, from their neighborhood, from their city, from their county, from their district. So maybe the DCO Red Team was thinking about a big region that they were assigned to for regional economic development. And maybe the library was thinking about Champaign County. And maybe someone else was thinking about just a city or a municipality. And so that geography really made a difference in how people were viewing business engagement. Because if you were just thinking about the businesses in your neighborhood, you had one reference point. But if you had more of a regional or a statewide paradigm of business engagement, you had a different reference point. And so we realized though early on that we were all seeing the world a little differently. We were also seeing the world differently because of our organizations. We have different types of organizations that have different missions. And that kind of is obvious. The library wants to get out information to the public. The IDES has a specific mission for serving businesses with layoff aversion and veterans and placement of folks who have been laid off. And then people have, or organizations have, different organizational structures and decision-making authority. So, for example, in the SBDC, we have the director of the SBDC at the table, and she can make decisions for the SBDC and what the SBDC does, and she can represent the SBDC basically autonomously. Where someone from like a DHS, they're in a local office that has a certain structure with a regional coordinator and some levels of structure above them with a State Department um, organization, and that causes there to be different abilities for decision making and for a sense of authority. And so we had to think about, how do we all think about this the same way when we're coming from different geographies, different organizations, and we have different types of authority. We also had different reference points. So in our daily lives, we delivered services to employers differently, and how we thought about interacting with other entities was different. Some of us were just used to providing one-on-one services to employers. Some of us were used to working in an ecosystem, and then everyone else was somewhere in between. So not everyone was used to thinking about a regional ecology and systems. Some people were just really, their background was just working in an organization to provide direct services. So their daily lives provided a worldview where being in an ecology and working in a system maybe didn't make sense. And then everyone, of course, brings their knowledge of public opinion and hot button issues and popular topics to the team. So in any kind of work that we do, people will show up obviously and they'll talk about what they've seen in the news and how they view the world through a certain lens, political or otherwise. And those topics will get bubbled up to the surface pretty quickly. But when we're talking about business engagement, that's a real specific thing. And so we have to kind of sort through what our opinions are and what our, echo chamber is, to really think about, well, what is business engagement and why are we here and why does this all matter? And so with those differences in geography and uh, opinions and experiences and organizations, we tried to find something that would bring us together. And it seemed like the most obvious thing was the Illinois Unified Plan. Illinois as a state already has a unified plan that has said bring everyone together. That unified plan talks about core partners, workforce development, adult education, family literacy, employment services, vocational rehab. Talks about other partners, career and technical education, human services, education, economic development, and business serving organizations like chambers of commerce. And we have a major state goal of be an example of excellence in its approach to collaboration and customer service. So by putting the unified state plan front and center, we say, oh, there's already something that says all of you should work together and you should be an example of excellence. And so spending some time looking at that as a framework worth highlighting helped us to start as a group to get on the same page. Then we thought about the Illinois Workforce Board that has all of those core partners, some of those required partners, and a lot of major employers in the state on it. And the Workforce Board is tasked with policymaking in our state for workforce development. And policymaking means for the IWEB, through structured committees and task forces, the IWEB representatives from private and public partner programs offer policy recommendations to strengthen Illinois' workforce system. All policies developed or commented upon include input from partners and the general public. All this to say that we didn't really need to reinvent the wheel. There was already someone at a state level that included all of our groups and employers and the general public that had thought through what a business service team was or could be. and they had developed some policy for us to think about locally. Excuse me. Specifically, the policy that they developed was called a Framework for Integrated Business Services. That's a 15-page document approved in 2017 that highlights how local areas can form and support local business services teams. That was shown to me a year or so ago by Lee Reese. So he's another director of a workforce board, and I just want to give him a shout out. But having that document gave us a framework that we could all agree on. Hey, there's already a unified plan. The IWIB's already put work into this. They've already spelled out how to form a local business service team. Let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's just go through this document together. And doing that allowed us to have something to focus on as we had conversations for the next year. And then we also talked about Apprenticeship Illinois. That Apprenticeship Illinois exists as a investment in local workforce areas to have an apprenticeship, a specialist, and develop integrated business service teams. So why not take that investment seriously and understand it and run with it as, good stewards and public servants? So we talked about local workforce areas. That doesn't mean Title I. That a local workforce area means all the people in an area that are involved in education, economic development, and workforce development are expected to work together. And we talked about an apprenticeship specialist, who that was and what that meant and how that connection to the state mattered and why it was important to try and grab that baton locally and run with it. And we talked about integrated business service teams, that everyone around the state is trying to develop these. And why not us? Why shouldn't we just give it our best shot? So Apprenticeship Illinois was a galvanizing point for us too, because of the investment that we had locally in a specialist and in our team. So all that led to us agreeing on the framework we should use: unified state plan, IWIB policy, Apprenticeship Illinois investment. And so we started trying to see things in one way instead of from, 15 different ways. And once we started going that direction, then we knew that we had to go through some plan change. And plan change, if you're not familiar with the idea, means instead of just saying, we're going to do X and then pushing it through, you say, we want to do X. How are we going to get there? And you talk it through. And that facilitated process of, we're going to think about this, we're going to have open discussion, we're going to goal set, and we're going to make commitments, is how you get everyone in the group to go in the same direction. It's not fast. Coming into a room and saying we're all going to do this seems like it's quicker, but a lot of times at the end of the day, a month later, no one's at that table. Where if you facilitate plan change and you really try and get everyone to participate, even though it's much, much, much slower, you can keep everyone at the table 6 months, a year, 2 years later, because you brought them along at their own pace. There was buy-in to the decisions being made, and everyone feels like they're a part of the change instead of the changes just being pushed on them. So that's the idea behind plan change and facilitating it. And facilitating it just means have those meetings, talk to people, get them excited, answer questions, and go through the process so that you are hearing from everybody, writing things down, clarifying to the group, hey, is this the direction we're going in? So being a facilitator, being a change maker it's an important part of this work, because it's not going to happen on its own. Someone has to facilitate it. It first started with, like I said, the Illinois boot camp, although we had done locally a year or two of capacity building before attending the boot camp. Capacity building meant we've talked about who are we, what does the environment look like, where's the opportunities, where's the gap. So there really wasn't any commitment. It was more of a environmental scan, and then an analysis of roles and resources, and identification of opportunities and challenges. So we had some groundwork laid through a capacity building project, but when we brought a group to the Illinois boot camp in 2023, that really again helped us to say, this is our group that's going to help with plan change. And what we were trying to do there was invest in relationships. You know, it's not the board or Apprenticeship Illinois or IWIB saying you have to do this. It's the people in a community who know each other and believe in similar things and want to go in the same direction are working together. So we're trying to invest in relationships with plan change. And again, we did that through the boot camp. Through the Apprenticeship Illinois investment in our area, we offered to partners to pay for the hotel, to reimburse for mileage, to reimburse for food. We didn't want there to be a financial barrier for them to come, and that did allow 3 or 4 additional folks to be able to come who didn't have their own budgets, for travel and to attend the boot camp. So that was our start. And then out of the Illinois boot camp, we did decide to have monthly meetings that were more or less a planning committee. And that planning committee was gonna have monthly meetings with the team of interested parties. Before each team, we were gonna create an agenda. We were gonna invite other people to the table who wanted to come, and then we moved the site around, um, of our meetings, so that we weren't just in one place. We went to the community college, and we went to the library, and we went to the chamber, and we went to, the regional planning commission, and the idea was for us to see each other and realize that, you know, it's bigger than one partner or one person. And then we followed up with summary emails after each meeting. Hey, this is what we talked about. This is probably what we're going to do next, and try to encourage people to continue to show up, and we thank them for their work. So that's how we invested in the relationships, was through this planning committee. I don't think anyone really knew that we were following Leading Change. I did as the facilitator. And so in your own local workforce area, as you're developing a business team and wanting to facilitate plan change, I just recommend you get Leading Change by John Cotter, and he's the U.S. leader of change. Um, he has 8 steps. We'll start at the bottom and we'll work our way up. The first thing you have to do is create a sense of urgency, and then you form a powerful coalition, and then you create a vision for change, and that's creating the climate for change. So again, no one likes when someone comes in and says, "This is what we're going to do because I said so." Instead, you're creating a climate for change by, "Hey, this is important. Why should we do this? Do you see the need here?" You know, and then forming a powerful coalition, getting people together who are going to support the change. So it's not just you, and then creating a vision for change. And that's an important piece because a lot of times in workforce development or education or economic development, we have a term that we just throw out there and we say, we have to do this now, like integrated business service team, and no one knows what that means. And so you lose momentum pretty quickly. There's not a climate for change. So if you have a vision for change, meaning we know where we're going, we know what this is, that helps create that climate. After you've created a climate for change, you engage and enable organizations. That's where you're communicating the vision, empowering action, creating quick wins. After you go through those pieces of those steps of plan change, then you're getting into implementing and sustaining the change, which is the hardest part, right? To make people really change. And you do that through building on the change you've already facilitated through those first 6 steps. And then in 8, you're trying to make things stick. And so as we talk about facilitating plan change, I'm going to talk about how we use the steps in our local business service team to try and facilitate change. Excuse me while I drink a sip of coffee. Excuse me. All right. The first step of leading change is creating urgency. And this is important because everyone has a lot of things going on, and nothing seems important except what's right in front of us. You know, the fire that we have to put out today is a thing that's making is putting a demand on our attention. And what's happening in the 15 other organizations around me doesn't matter, because the thing I have to do in my organization with my boss breathing down my neck, or a deadline and something that's due, or some task that I can't figure out, or a client that's really giving me a difficult time. All those things are taking up a lot of my attention. And those things are what are telling me how to set priorities based on them being the most urgent thing. So when you're getting a group together, you have to try and create a sense of urgency that draws everyone's attention towards what the group is feeling as being something that's urgent and worth paying attention to. And so what you want people to feel like is that they're doing something important and they're not wasting their time. So trying to figure that out about how you and your local area can create that sense of urgency where people feel like, okay, if we go this direction, it's going to be important and we're not wasting our time, is how you start creating that sense of urgency. For us, again, it was, hey, we all serve businesses. What if we did it together? Couldn't we help each other and make a bigger difference with our employers? And that simple enough sense of urgency made people say it's worth spending time kind of thinking through that. That the promise of being able to collaborate and find support and do better work and more effective work with more employers as community leaders, that did create a sense of urgency for us locally. And so we had to form a powerful coalition. It couldn't just be the workforce board with the Apprenticeship Illinois grant that was leading this. There had to be other people who thought that this was important because we can't lead change on our own. We need people who are excited, supportive, and will bring others to the table. And so we looked at who are our partners in Title II, III, and IV. Let's invite them to the table. Who are our required partners in Perkins and Career Tech Ed and unions and TANF and Housing Authority with the Youth Build and the HUD grants and so on. And who are some of those partners that we should be working with as a matter of best practice, EDCs and chambers and things like that. And after talking through all those folks, we did have a handful of people who believed in this and wanted to come to the table and would encourage other people in the room and would reach out and invite more people. So we had someone from IDS come and they really believed in it. And so they brought someone else from IDS. And we had someone from DHS come and they really believed in what we were doing. And so they brought in someone else from DHS. And that kind of work was beneficial. The library brought in the SBDC. And so having those people at the table who believed in the mission and the urgency, and so that they could be supportive of the meetings and get other people involved was very important. And again, we started with that with the boot camp, having people at the boot camp, the chamber and doors and the community college and the red team and some other folks. They saw that there was some urgency around it across the state, and then came back wanting to be a powerful coalition. So that really helped us out. The next steps are creating a vision and then communicating that vision. So we have sense of urgency and we have a coalition. What is the vision? And again, this is where I encourage you to look at that framework for integrative services that the IWIB put out, because we use that for our vision. And we reviewed the state's framework. And in that framework, there's foundational elements and structural components. So the foundational elements are things like how to be transformative, how to be collaborative. And the structural components were things like how to engage businesses, how to share information. And that, as we talked through that, that developed the vision for our group. So it wasn't, this is what the EDC wants to do, and this is what the library wants to do, and this is what the board wants to do. But we use that framework to get a mental model of this is where we want to go as a group. And as we talk through each of those things, I think it's 8 or 9 foundational elements and 5 or 6 structural components. Every month we talk through each of those things really intentionally, and we were developing and creating a vision for change until we got to a place where we all said, okay, this is the vision, we've created it. So so then we start communicating the vision as we're kind of wrapping up the year of planning, and we're talking about how we use those foundational elements and structural components in our vision and we're listening and we're adjusting and then we're putting them down in writing and we're saying, is this what we're saying as a group? Are these the things that we want to do? Is this how we're going to interact? Is this who we are? Is this what the expectations are? And we, again, listened and adjusted to try and get us all going in the same direction. And that talking through of the vision is usually a missing aspect of change, that you're just saying this is where we're going without really listening or adjusting based on who's at the table. And it wasn't about pushing through my vision or one person's vision. It was about developing a vision and communicating a vision that everyone could buy into. Next, we needed to empower action. And again, that goes back to people have different reference points as far as their geography. You know, if you're in one neighborhood, things seem impossible. If you're in another setting and environment, things seem obvious and easy. And different people have different powers and authorities within their own organization. So even though we've now gone through structural components and a framework and we have a vision, there's still a bit of trepidation in the group around, can we actually take action on this? Some folks had that concern, and so when you're talking about leading change, you want to think about how to empower people to take action. And so there was really intentional conversations about what are you comfortable with, what do you need clarity on, who can you get answers from so that you can feel comfortable taking action. Because what we don't want to do and didn't want to do is launch a business team and no one does anything because they think they can't take action. And so after some conversations, people started having light bulbs go off and say, okay, I am empowered to take action. There's already a business, there's already a unified plan, there's already a policy, there's already a local MOU that says we're all participating in these things. We have already committed to taking action with businesses. We don't have to figure out if we can take action. We know we can take action because all of our ducks are in a row. And we had a team member actually present on leading from the ground up because she got so fired up around um, understanding and believing that she could take action as a agent of her organization. And I thought that was pretty cool. Next, to facilitate plan change, we had to create some quick wins. And so this is where a lot of plan change efforts go off the rails, is because you have your urgency and you have your coalition and you have your vision, um, and you've empowered to take action. And then one of two things happens that will kind of stop the change. One is if you never have quick wins and you just keep meeting for the sake of meeting. And after a while, people will say, you know, what a waste of time that was. And they just won't come to the table. The other thing that can happen is that the wins that you try and achieve are just too big and too long term and too out there and require so much change so quickly that everyone abandons the cause. So what you want to do is you want to set up for the group really small wins that are really doable, that are very easy, that don't require a lot of change, and that anyone can do, because they need to be quick and they need to be wins. And so as we thought about a soft launch, we decided that our quick wins are going to be a business visit form. And that would be a one-page form that anyone on the team could reference and um, probe employers um, for information and put down on that form. And then they would come back from a business visit and they would make a quality referral to other team members. And so a quality referral means we understand what services other entities have, excuse me. We understand what the businesses want. And so we're making a referral. The person who receives that referral is going to be able to respond to the needs of that employer. And it's not just going to be them wasting their time, because that employer is really going to need that service. And the referral maker is going to know that X entity can provide that service. So if we can just kind of visit businesses and get some information, know what each other does and make a quality referral, and then sometimes do a shared visit together and sometimes have public events and do a promotion. So once or twice a year, do some sort of event where we tell the community, hey, we're a business team. So these are quick wins. So when you look at the framework or you think about the business team, you think about, well, sector partnerships and only shared visits. And those are things we're going to work towards over the long term, but they're not something that's going to be a quick win. It's not something that's going to happen tomorrow, where every time we visit an employer, we all go together, or we set up a sector partnership for manufacturing tomorrow. It's just that's not a quick win. But having a quick win of a business visit forum, a quality referral, sometimes doing shared visits, and doing some public events and promotion of the team, that's going to be a quick win for us, and we're comfortable with that. That's going to help us with the change. The next two pieces are what happens after those quick wins or during those quick wins. And these are the parts of change that are supposed to kind of cement the change. So right now, if you can think about it, you have 15 different entities that historically haven't really worked together in this way. And they've developed a vision together and they've identified some quick wins. But now to do that, you actually have to change your behavior, change your workday, change how you think about other folks. So we really have to be intentional as we're trying to get these quick wins to build on the change, because it becomes easy to lose momentum if it gets too difficult and there are no wins. And at this point, if people start feeling the pressure from trying to do too much change too quickly, that's where those people who've been silent because they haven't really bought in are going to begin to share their concerns. So this happens all the time. So don't be freaked out by it, but you'll go through the whole plan change process and you'll have urgency and you have a coalition and you have a vision and you'll communicate it and you'll have buy-in and you'll have empowerment and you'll have quick wins. And the whole time in that group, there's one or two people who aren't really contributing. Or if they do, it's really just questions, but it's not any solutions. At this point in facilitating change, those people are going to become really vocal all of a sudden. And it's they're going to dig their heels in about why things won't work or why it can't happen. And they might even quietly sabotage the change by going around to other team members. And this happens in every change effort. If you've ever been a part of plan change. So just kind of anticipate that there's going to be people who haven't bought in, they are going to share their concerns and they might sabotage things a little bit. And that's where you as a facilitator and as a team, hopefully you have the skills and the strength to go to weather those instances and try and get people on board. So the purpose here or the goal there at that point would be to address those concerns and try and get that person to buy in or make a decision for that person or people to leave the group so you can just focus on the team that does want to continue with the change. It can go either way. It just depends on what happens with the folks that are involved. But then you really have to make it stick. And making it stick means you're making change a part of your regular work and normal environment. So what we're trying to get stick here is use the business visit form, make a referral, think about other people. And if you're doing a business visit, excuse me, go ahead and invite those folks with you on that business visit. So this is difficult because it's easy to talk in a room about things that seem exciting, but to implement it, it requires some effort. So you want to make the change pretty easy to implement, and you want to encourage people to think about how they're thinking and to form new habits. And that's a skill set that not everyone has, but the way you do that is by asking questions and by role modeling and um, having relationships where you can talk through issues when people have challenges. Because what you want to do is you want to be a source of support through the change. And if someone is struggling, just show them how this is real easy. Have you thought about X, Y, and Z? Or how are you thinking about X, Y, and Z? And then have them think about, well, what do you do when you visit a business? And could you really think about changing it a bit? So for 15 minutes, you're using this business visit form. And so making it stick, that's the challenge of every plan change effort. And that's where plan change is either successful or you have to go back to the drawing board a bit. So where we're at with our plan change is we're at the end of it. If we've launched a local brand or we're launching a local brand, we're in the midst of what you call a soft launch, where we don't have a lot of expectations on the community, but we're putting expectations on ourselves to get some quick wins and trying to implement some of those changes. When everyone feels comfortable, we'll have more of a quote unquote hard launch, probably around October. In our soft launch, what we're doing is we're launching a local brand. So our local brand is East Central Illinois Business Team because we're in East Central Illinois and we're thinking about the EDR, the ALWIA, in kind of line with the Unified State Plan and with the IWIB and with our local plans and with Apprenticeship Illinois. It seemed to make sense for us. And it calls out the geography and it calls out what we do. We're in East Central Illinois and we're a business team. We had to talk through and decide on who would become a member. What we decided was workforce development, education, and economic development entities that provide services to businesses, and our economic development region could be a member. So that's pretty broad, and we wanted it to be broad. And we wanted, if you're in workforce development, if you're in education, if you're in economic development, and you're providing services to businesses, we want you in. That caveat is we're not working right now with private organizations that are providing training or consulting. It really is more of the public service providers, nonprofits or governments. And why are we doing this? Why would someone become a member? We're saying it's so they can network with partners and make it easier to provide services to businesses and sectors. So with our local brand, as we're launching, the most important thing is to have members who buy into the team. So who and why is important to call out for us. We had to set expectations through meetings and one-on-ones and emails. And basically our expectations are around buy-in and buy-in means, do you understand the structural components of the framework? Do you understand the foundational elements of the framework? And do you have shared commitments with the planning committee? And it was important for us as a group to not let the past year or so with the boot camp and all the planning to have to be reinvented or rediscussed every time we got a new member. So what we did is we codified more or less our team's buy-in to those components, those elements, and shared commitments, and to a new member orientation and a team charter. The orientation is about an hour long, and it lets new members quickly get up to speed and get on the same page with the planning committee. And it talks about, again, those structural components, foundational elements, the IWIB, and who we are as a team. And then we created a team charter that outlined our vision, mission, goals, and structure. And so it's pretty clear in there who we are and what we do as a business team. And as we launched a local brand, it was important for us to have that orientation and that team charter so people were very clear on this is who we are as a team. We talked about making referrals, and that was a little bit of a hang up, but I think as we thought through it, we already make referrals of job seekers across entities. And that referral system has a place for notes and a dashboard to monitor status and response times for individuals. And we're already making those referrals between each other. That's through that AJC work system. And it works good for us. Again, we have a dashboard and different entities can get access to it. They can make referrals. And on that dashboard, you can see how much time has passed since the referral was responded to, and you can see if the status of that referral has it been responded to and what has happened. And then there's places for notes where you can go in and you can see what services were provided or what action was taken. And so we said, if we already do that with individuals, it should be easy to do it for businesses. So We're using the same platform and we just added a section for quote unquote business services. And then the folks that aren't in our individual or in our referral system currently for making referrals of individuals for workforce services, we're just teaching those new partners how to use the platform. It's pretty easy. We did talk about confidentiality about employee information. This was important as we thought about how this team was going to impact local employers. So we addressed concerns about the privacy expectations and needs of employers, that the information that they would share with us, we needed to keep confidential. And so we talked about how sharing information, that we would keep it confidential by agreeing not to speak publicly about employers with friends, family, or on social media. And then we'd also create a waiver for employers to review and sign when we wanted to promote successful projects. So with confidentiality, um, the steps that we took locally involved, excuse me, really having intentional conversations about what information we would gather and how we would share it, and then how we would hold each other accountable as a team, and then how we would put employers at ease with that information, with that waiver, and by discussing the information sharing with them up front. When we thought about our team and continuing to have business team meetings, we decided it'd be best to have annual elections for a chair and a vice chair. If we have a chair and a vice chair take the responsibility for the meetings, then it's not just on one group like the workforce board, um, but it's revolving and everyone has the opportunity to lead meetings and prepare for meetings and lead the team. We did call out that the duties of the chair for the year would be meeting planning, agenda creation, meeting facilitation, follow up with members, addressing group concerns, and providing an orientation to new members. After we went through those, making those decisions and coming to some commitments, we did decide on a soft launch for July, October. And this is allowing us to figure out who we are as a business team without a lot of pressure or expectations. It's just, okay, we launched and how are we going to do this? And we're giving ourselves some space to kind of figure it out and get those quick wins. So again, we were talking about an integrated business service team today and how to engage those partners. We talked about the importance of building a shared framework and why that having a shared framework matters. We talked about facilitating plan change and Cotter's 8 steps of plan change and how we use those locally to facilitate some change. And then we talked about launching a local brand, and for us, what that meant and how we're going about it. And we've had some success, and I'm looking forward to more in the future. You might do it differently, but maybe there's something here that you can use. If you have any questions, you can reach me. And my email is here. You can also reach Jennifer and Jordan, and their emails are here too. Thanks again for letting me present to you today about engaging IBST partners. I appreciate the work all of you are doing, and if I can help in any way, please reach out to me. I'm going to have a staff member now answer some questions. Thank you.